Today is May 1st. It's also known as Melanoma Monday. It is a day aimed at making sure that you know how to protect your skin from the sun and avoid skin cancer, the most common form of cancer in the U.S. Christine Brannock, Oncology Outreach Manager with Cone Health Cancer Center, who is with us today to talk all about this. All right, so let's start with the basic, right? Something we all know about, which is sunscreen. And we have a lot of debates, especially in my house, about what SPF is really recommended. So what should we be looking for?
So yes, the SPF is the sun protection factor. So we should be wearing a 30 or higher. And the reason is a sunscreen of a 15 only protects against 93% of UV rays, a 30 against 97% of UV rays, and a 50 or higher is 99%.
Okay, and that may be a little bit confusing because people might think it's protecting 15% of the rays. No, that's not how that works. It's like the 93%, 99%. Okay, now if you didn't use up all your sunscreen from like last year, right, there's still some bottles left around. Is it okay to use it this summer?
So sunscreen is supposed to be good for 3 years. So what we usually say is if it doesn't have an expiration date on it, that if you write the date on it when you purchase it, that way you know the next year if it's still good or not.
Okay, so you got 3 years to use that sunscreen and then it just breaks down and it's not as effective as it once was. Okay, let's talk about how much do we really need to rub on, because that also is a point of contention.
Yeah, it's really important that you rub it on really good, and most people use around an ounce of sunscreen, which would be equivalent to around the size of a shot glass.
Okay, so that's how much we need to use, 1 ounce.
Yes, we do.
Okay, and that is for the whole body?
For most people, it is, but we're only really needing to cover those areas that are exposed to the sun. We'll talk a little bit later about what exactly we do as far as clothing that we need to wear also.
Okay, let's talk about those spray sunscreens because they're really popular. They're not as messy, at least they don't seem so. So how do you know if you have enough, and should you be rubbing it on afterwards, or is it just okay to spray?
So spray sunscreen is very convenient, but yet we do need to make sure that we're spraying them really well, such as until we see the skin like glisten. And then we also need to rub it in, because a lot of times we get in a rush with those sunscreens, then we might miss a spot and still get a sunburn. Some other things that are really important is to make sure that it's not to spray it directly in our face. If we're going to use it on our face, to spray it in our hands and then rub it on. And also to make sure that we spray it in an area that is not windy. Because a lot of times if we're spraying in a windy area, the wind might blow the sunscreen away and might not protect us because it might not make it to our skin.
Okay. All right. So a lot of times we know we're going to the pool or we know we're going to the beach. Should we be applying the sunscreen before we get there, or is it okay to apply it when we're like at the pool or at the beach?
So it's important to apply our sunscreen 15 to 30 minutes before we go outside. We want to make sure that sunscreen absorbs in our skin so that it is effective by the time we get outside.
Okay, and so we want to make sure we give that 15 or 20 minutes or so before that happens. All right, what are some common areas that people tend to forget to put on sunscreen?
So we need to make sure we apply our sunscreen on everywhere. We need to make sure we apply it on our fingers, our toes, our face. Our ears is a big spot. The back of our neck, I know a lot of times men forget to put it on their scalps, especially if their hair is receding. So it's very important that we make sure we cover everywhere, especially those sun exposed areas.
All right, let's talk reapplication, because a lot of us would like to think we can put it on at the beginning of the day and that's the only time we need to put it on.
No, we need to make sure we reapply it every couple hours while we're outside. So I usually kind of a rule of thumb say, hey, if we're getting out of the pool to take a little break, maybe getting a snack or something, that's an excellent time to go ahead and reapply that sunscreen. Some sunscreens will tell you on the bottle how long they're good as far as water resistant. No sunscreen is completely waterproof, so it's very important that we do reapply it, because if we're outside, we might be swimming in a pool, we might be sweaty, so we need to make sure we reapply that sunscreen.
All right, let's talk about some things that we wear so that we don't have to put as much sunscreen in different places. How about hats?
So it's important we wear a wide brim hat, one that covers our whole head, because to make sure that we're protecting our forehead, our ears, and the back of our neck.
Okay, and we probably should be putting sunscreen on anyway, right? Even if we're wearing a hat.
We are, but if we're getting to the pool, obviously we're not going to have a hat on, but yes, when we're in, those are the hats that we should be picking. The baseball hat doesn't cover our whole head, and those ears are still hanging out. So important, if you do wear those hats, that you make sure you put your sunscreen on very well.
All right, and any kind of fabric kind of things that we should be thinking of when it comes to hats?
So we need to make sure it's tightly woven so that you can't see through it.
Okay, and is a hat enough to protect your eyes?
No, we need to make sure we wear our sunglasses when we're outside, because sun exposure can damage our eyes. It can cause cataracts or macular degeneration. We also need to make sure that our sunglasses protect us against the UVA and the UVB rays, the same as our sunscreen, and they are labeled on the sunglasses when you purchase them.
Okay, all right, we're going to take a quick break, but we'll be back. We're talking about sun and skin cancer and how to avoid all of that. We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back. Christine Brannock, Oncology Outreach Manager with Cone Health Cancer Centers, with us today talking about skincare and being safe in the sun this summer and really all year round. Before the break, we had talked about sunscreens and we talked about hats and sunglasses. So let's now talk about clothing. Does the color of your shirt matter when it comes to sun protection?
So it's important we wear either clothing that has this SPF protection factor, or we can wear dark colored clothes. And I know some of you are thinking, hey, dark colored clothes is a lot hotter when we're outside. Yeah, but the rule of thumb is if you take your shirt and you hold it up to the sunlight, if you can see through that shirt, that means the sun's rays could get to that shirt and you can still get a sunburn. So if you do wear those lighter colors, it's important to make sure you have your sunscreen on.
Okay, is it like too much to wear sunscreen and a shirt?
No, you can wear sunscreen and the shirt.
Is there ever a time when we really have to have that?
So, I mean, like, the way I teach when we go teach classes in the community to kids, if you think about a lot of times white t-shirts, we can see right through them. And so it's important that we do wear that sunscreen, because if we don't, there is that potential we could get a sunburn.
All right, let's talk about kids, because you know how much they love to put sunscreen on. All right, what kind of recommendations do you have about protecting our kids from the sun?
So as you can see the shirt behind me, we do a fun program for kids called Slip, Slop, Slap. So what that is we teach the kids to slip on a dark colored shirt. Then we teach them to slop on sunscreen, and we teach them to slop on a 30 sunscreen or higher. Now 30 is our magic number, so we do tell them to slop it on 30 minutes before they go outside. Now also slapping on a hat with a wide brim that covers their whole head. And then we also teach to wear sunglasses to protect their eyes while they're outside.
Okay, that's fun. Slip, slop, slap. Okay. Any other recommendations? Because little ones really can be challenging when it comes to putting on that sunscreen.
So it's really about making it fun. Using the slip, slop, slap. Play games. We always tell them too, as far as finding shade when they're outside. The sun's rays are the strongest between 10 and 2. If their shadow is shorter than them, that lets them know the sun's rays are the strongest.
Okay. All right. So what about people with darker skin tones? Do they still need to follow the same kind of sunscreen recommendations?
So regardless of our skin tone, anybody can get skin cancer. So everyone should follow the same guidelines to protect their skin from the sun.
Okay. Now I have like a watch that tells me the UV and that kind of stuff, but are there other ways to tell when the sun's rays may be strongest and when you need to be in the shade?
So yes, it's like I mentioned a few minutes ago, if our shadow is shorter than you, that lets us know that the sun's rays are the strongest, or just between 10 and 2 is typically when they are the strongest.
Okay, I'm glad you reiterated that because I missed that. If your shadow is shorter than you, and normally your shadow makes you real tall, makes your legs long and all that kind of stuff. So if it's shorter than you, that's when you need to find the shade.
Yeah. Okay. And that's how we make it fun for kids too, because they understand that better than just looking at a watch.
Oh, sure, absolutely. Okay. Along with the prevention, the early detection for skin care is also very important. Let's talk a little bit about that.
So it is important that we do check our skin. We need to check it every month, and we need to have our doctor check and skin every year to make sure there's not any changes. Some of the things that we want to look for are any changes of size or shape in our mole. A mole should be a perfect round circle. So if we were to notice that we kind of look at the A, B, C, D, E's. So the A is the asymmetry. If one side of that mole is larger than the other. The B is the border, if we notice a jagged border or irregular. The C is the color, if you notice any variations in the color. The D is the diameter, if we notice that that mole is bigger than 1/4 of an inch, or a pencil eraser. Or the E is evolving, if we're seeing that change over time. Also, if we have any sores or that are not healing, tend to bleed and crust over repeatedly, those are all things we want to look for when we're checking our skin.
Okay, all right. These are all good things, and it's something that you may want to revisit with your family, some of the stuff that we talked about today, because we do have those discussions, I'll call them, at home between kids and parents and spouses and whatever about how much sunscreen we should use. So thank you so much. If you missed anything today, you can head over to our website, WFMYnews2.com, click in the To Your Well-Being section.